Ladies and gentlemen.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to ask if we can turn off or silence all cell phones or electronic devices at this time. Thank you very much.
Adonai, Ma'adam v'tegaehu, Ben enosh v'techashvehu, Adam la'hebel doma, Yamav kitzel over, Baboker yatzitz v'chalav, לערב ימולל ויובש, תשב אנוש עד דקה. ותאמר שוב בני אדם, לו חכמו ישכילו זאת, יבינו לאחריתם, כי לא במותו ייקח הכל, לא ירד אחריו כבודו. שמורתם וראי ישר, כי אחרית לאיש שלום. פודה אדוני נפש אדם, ולא ישנו כל החוסים בו. Adonai Ma'adam, God, what are we that you have regard for us? What are we that you are mindful of us? We are like a breath, our days are like a passing shadow. We come and go like grass which in the morning shoots up renewed, and in the evening fades and withers. You cause us to revert to dust, saying, Shuvu v'nei Adam, return, O mortals. Would that we were wise, that we understood whither we are going. When we die, we carry nothing with us, though our good name remains eternal. Mark the wholehearted and behold the upright, for they shall have peace. God, you redeem the souls of your servants, and none who trust in you shall be desolate. In his attempt to create a template of order for our unpredictable world, Kohelet, the author of the book of Ecclesiastes, a book we will read in just over a couple weeks on the holiday of Sukkot, he wrote, L'kol zman chochefetz tachat hashamayim. A season is set for everything, a time for every experience under heaven, a time for dancing and a time for wailing, a time for birthing and even a time for dying. Kohelet may be right in this assessment that there is a time for every season. However, even if we know there is a time, still the ache of sorrow and loss is real. It deserves attention, acknowledgement, and the consolation that loved ones can offer us. The time of mourning is complicated, filled with so many memories and emotions, bitter and sweet. Historically, Jews have sought comfort from our most ancient poetry, that of the Book of Psalms. And so we continue now with the words of Psalm 23, and feel free to join me in the English. God is my shepherd, I shall not want. God makes me lie down in green pastures, leads me beside still waters, and restores my soul. You lead me in right paths for the sake of your name. Even when I walk in the valley of shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You have set a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You have anointed my head with oil, my cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of God forever. We have an understanding of our own biology that is better than of any preceding generation. We have seized our enhanced appreciation of physics to travel to the moon and send satellites beyond our solar system. And yet, despite Kohelet's attempt at imposing order, with every secret revealed, the marvels and mysteries of our world grow deeper. That same author of Ecclesiastes also wrote, Ein Adam shalit b'ruach ve'ein shaliton b'yom ha'mavet. No one has authority over the life breath. There is no authority over the day of death. It is often knowing our own limitations and in recognizing what is beyond our comprehension that perhaps we come closest to God. Just as we draw comfort from the ancient biblical poetry of our tradition, perhaps we can find comfort from more modern poets. Alvin Fine wrote, Leida hireshitu tirat achlit, hachayim k'masahem k'halecha kitzmicha, mishalav l'shalav. Birth is a beginning, and death a destination. But life is a journey, a growing from stage to stage. From childhood to maturity and youth to age, from innocence to awareness and ignorance to knowing, from foolishness to discretion, and then perhaps to wisdom, from weakness to strength or strength to weakness and often back again, from health to sickness and back we pray to health again, from offense to forgiveness, from loneliness to love, from joy to gratitude, from pain to compassion, and grief to understanding, from fear to faith, from defeat to defeat to defeat, until looking backward or ahead, we see that victory lies not at some high place along the way, but in having made the journey, stage by stage, a sacred pilgrimage. Ledahireshitu tirat tachlit, v'hachayim k'masahem aliyah kedosha. Birth is a beginning, and death a destination. But life is a journey, a sacred pilgrimage, made stage by stage from birth to death, to life everlasting. I invite now two people who knew Michael perhaps best, his dear friend and brother-in-law Eli and his niece Lisa.
A little over 9 years ago, I met Michael Gelman for the first time. And in my conversation with Michael, I came to realize he was a very unique individual. He was unique in the respect that he was a child survivor of the Holocaust. He was a member of that generation of too few survivors of World War II. His parents, Ava and Ephraim Gelman, along with his older sisters Zelda and Carol, were forced to flee from their homes and seek refuge in the forests of Europe. Deprived sustenance, denied shelter, living in fear, on the edge of loss. That was the world that Michael Gelman was born into. Amazingly, the Gelman family was able to stay intact, which is nothing short of a miracle. And Michael, born in the month of October, a handful of weeks short of the harsh European winters. This man is a fighter from the moment he opens his eyes. And it speaks to his character as an individual, his strength of will and determination. The Gelmans survived Hitler and the Third Reich. the war ends, and they make the decision to come to America. They must come to America. But that is not an easy task. Many people want to come to America at that time. They find themselves in Austria in a displaced persons camp. And I'm sure the journey there was not an easy one, with a family and an infant. Ultimately, they're in Austria, and their eldest daughter, Zelda, marries a gentleman by the name of Abe Lipson. And now the two families find voyage from the rubble of Europe to the shores of America. I spoke to Michael about this journey, and he remembers it well. They came across the Atlantic on a vessel called the General Muir. This was a converted troop carrier. And the moment that stands out in Michael's mind most vividly is that time when he sees the Statue of Liberty. And at that young age, he knows that that torch means freedom and safety for his family. And so he tells me this story, and I have a mental image of young Michael on board this vessel, his hands on the railing, staring at the Statue of Liberty as the Muir glides by. And only three words enter my mind. God bless America. God bless America. And so the Gelmans find themselves in the New World. And it is definitely new. New language, new food, new customs. But you know what else is new? No hate. You know what else is new? Freedom. Freedom to say what you want, freedom to go where you want, freedom to be who you want. And so like many other Holocaust survivors, the family finds themselves in southern New Jersey. Now, you may or you may not know this, but following World War II, a lot of Holocaust survivors did in fact move to South Jersey. They moved to towns like Vineland, Rosenhain, Dorothy, Estelle Manor. For the Gelmans, it was Bargaintown. And the profession they had chose was poultry farming. Poultry farming. From personal experience, I can tell you that is a hard business. The days are long. You rise with the sun and you work till dark. And you work Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and you repeat. And at best, it's a capricious business. When egg production is good, everybody's egg production is good, and the price of eggs drop, and you don't make money. When egg production is bad, you have nothing to sell, and you don't make money. This is the occupation that the Gelmans decided to go into with the Lipsons on Stillmanville Road. And as I heard that name, Stillmanville Road, I thought, what a perfectly named road for this family to live on. Because to get through what they had to get through, they really were like steel. But their resourcefulness and their ability to adapt equips them for this task. And so they prosper. And they find themselves shipping eggs to New York City and locations throughout New Jersey. And Michael, at this young age, sees people, his family, working hard, working long hours, and he must internalize them. He must internalize this and recognize that this effort sustains the family. And I think that that is who Michael becomes at his core. That desire to work and strive is really who he is. And so he has what seems to be a typical childhood in Bargaintown. Goes to school, graduates from high school, and goes on to higher education and gets a bachelor's degree and a master's degree. It's an amazing leap from somebody coming from Europe in one generation to find themselves in college. And so Michael relates a story to me that when he first graduated, his father came over to him. He put his arm around his shoulder and he said, "Life has begun." Life has begun. And for Michael, it has begun. He became a teacher. He became a husband. He became a father. After he was a teacher for a period of time, his father came to him and asked him to come into an additional family business that the Gelmans had started. They became home builders. In addition to having poultry, they became home builders in South Jersey. They formed a company called Harbor Custom Homes and Harbor Construction. So Michael becomes intricately involved in this company. And it strikes me, there's a sweet irony here. Here is this family, denied sustenance, denied housing. They come to America, and what do? They provide sustenance, they provide shelter to others. What a beautiful statement about this country. So as Michael becomes more involved in the business, his responsibilities grow. And as is his nature, he works long hours on a daily basis, and he works all week long. At some point, he finds himself not only involved in the family business, but sitting on both the zoning board and the planning board in his town. And he's a very, very industrious individual and working hard, as is his character. But in spite of the small amount of time that he can perhaps dedicate to his family under those circumstances, he does find the effort and the time to tend his two boys, Brett and Stuart, and follow their functions on the sports field, whether it's hockey or whatever other sports they play. And to the point that he actually sponsors their teams. And I can imagine that must have been a source of pride for him to see that name, Harbor Custom Homes, or G&L Poultry perhaps, I'm not sure if that was used, on those jerseys as his kids are playing baseball or soccer, whatever sport it may be. And in speaking with Stuart, he relayed to me that at some point Michael had purchased a video camera, and apparently he felt compelled to videotape everything. Every game was filmed, the trip to Disney World was filmed, Brett's 6th grade play was filmed, and so you have this bright American experience in his family. And his two sons, much to his pride, find themselves also in higher education. And so Brett attends Syracuse University, Stuart attends Hofstra, and so for them, life has begun. Life has begun. But time moves on, and as time moves on, there are always changes and challenges. Changes and challenges. It's inevitable. And Michael faces significant challenges. He has health issues that plague him from a fairly young age. And he faces those challenges. But he also has a change. In this case, it's a wonderful change. He meets Bobby. Now, for those of you who know Bobby, you know she is sweet and open and loving. And Michael's fortunate to have her by his side, because as he faces every health issue, Bobby is there with him at every doctor's appointment, at every trip to the hospital, helping him maintain the myriad of medications he has to take, on a daily basis. Yet remember, Michael is a fighter. He doesn't give up. And he has that core that says he has to work. And somehow, in spite of all the maladies, all the hospitalizations, he still finds the energy to get up and go to work. Because to him, he knows that work means the family is being taken care of. And so he does this. Even after suffering COVID, he somehow musters the energy to do this. But unfortunately, we're all mortal, and these different issues finally overwhelm Michael, and he can no longer push forward. But prior to this, I asked Bobby, I said, how does Michael do this? How does he continue? So many other people would have given up. Bobby said to me, he's brave. He is brave. He faced every illness, feeling that he would overcome it, push through it, and would refuse to give up. You know who else is brave? This one, Bobby. Bobby's brave. And she's with Michael every step of the way. And in spite of all the issues that went on, always maintaining a smile and a laugh, giving comfort and love, because that's who she is. And so, time comes near for Michael to depart. And Bobby is with him in his last remaining days and weeks. And she's with him at that moment when he peacefully draws his last breath. And so, I hope it's of some solace to those who know and love Michael, that in spite of the fact he had such a harsh entry onto this planet, that at least his few remaining days, he was treated with comfort, care, and love.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Eli. That was a beautiful eulogy. Bobby, thank you for taking care of Michael and being a fabulous wife and being part of our family. And it's beautiful to see Brett and Stuart, my cousins, and Michael's great kids, and the kids that I babysat, which will be part of this. I'm going to try to make this a little lighter, since I'm the baby of the family, of our family, as Michael was the baby of the family. So I'm Lisa, as I was introduced, and I have two sisters, Rosalind and Sarah. My sisters and I were very fortunate to have a really cool uncle that lived down the street on Steelmanville Road. And he wasn't much older than us. He was actually 5 years older than my sister Sarah, who's in Florida right now and watching this virtually. She doesn't fly right now. She's very COVID sensitive, as we all are. And they were like brother and sister pretty much. When they came to the United States, they lived in the same house for several years on Steelmanville Road, as I call in Bargaintown, the thriving metropolis of Bargaintown, New Jersey. And they're now known as A. Carver Township, because we really don't, it's so big that it isn't even really a town anymore, right? And we were near Michael most of our childhood, and really a lot of our adult time as well. And so our houses were really in a row. So while they were in a row and several feet apart, I guess, the doors were always open. People were in and out of the houses all the time. And sometimes you'd be like, oh, they're coming over, because the doors were always open. So Michael represented a lot to us in many ways. If to our family members. He taught us a lot of things: resilience, loyalty to parents and siblings, openness to trying a lot of different things. And I think Eli really mentioned a lot of things, and it makes me happy that it was consistent. And while we talked about a lot of things, we didn't talk about a lot of those things, but a lot came out of what I'm going to mention in his eulogy. So it's consistency. He was open to trying a lot of new occupations and being a hard worker. He enjoyed the Jewish holidays, and I'll tell you, when I think of Passover, I think of the big Passovers at his parents, our Bubba and Zetas, with our cousins from then New York and then New Jersey, Rena, Sharon, and Norman, and the kids, and us, and a lot of other cousins, and then it dwindled to smaller holidays, but he could do a good Diana because he would add the da-da-da-da, and that will always be in my memories because he was pretty funny. Yeah, sometimes a little corny, but really funny. He respected a lot of Jewish customs and really, he withheld them for us, and that will come later. And he liked a good laugh even if he wasn't feeling good. And a good laugh is always a good thing, I think. So, as I had mentioned, I'm the youngest and Michael was the youngest. And being the baby is tough, especially when you're old, because you're always the baby. And you have to, there's a lot of responsibilities with being the baby. And I think Michael always had to be extra responsible. He was responsible to his parents, to things he did. And he always took it, I think, pretty seriously. So, as I mentioned, Sarah, Michael, okay, I mentioned that already. Sorry about that. So, as I said to Sarah and Michael, when they came to the United States, there was a small house on Steelmanville Road, but there were a lot of people in it. There was Sarah and Michael, Michael's parents, my grandparents, my parents. There was our cousin Carl was there, his sister Carol, and I think there might have been more people here and there that were there. And then people broke off. You know, my parents got a house and my sister Rosalind was born and we were still down the street. But my earliest memory was Michael babysitting, and he babysat us. And he taught me, I think, the talent that I still have that would upset my mother of leaving the empty box in the freezer. And I bet you know, Stuart and Brett know this talent too. And I think I probably did that as well when I babysat then, because you know you have to keep that up, you know. But he also, one of his first jobs was working in an arcade, and my sister Rosalind reminded me that he would bring stuffed animals, and her favorite stuffed animal was Ellie the elephant that he brought. She had him for a long time. But that was one of the first numerous creative jobs that he had. And then he, you know, went off, and as Eli had mentioned, the first of our family to graduate college and have an advanced degree, and became a teacher, and then got into the building business with our grandfather, his father. And then he moved on. Even after that, in between, I should say, because then he was a builder again, he drove a limo for the casino. And as a kid, that was pretty exciting to me as a teenager because I like pop culture. And he would indulge me with this, and he would tell us a lot of stories of the people he would drive. And, you know, there'd be Frank Sinatra, this one, that one, and Michael could tell a good story. And then, you know, he would tell us, he would like the joke because there was time with the limo and the Grey Poupon, so you had to hear that a lot of times. So, you know, I think even recently, so that he would tell us about that. But I think when he was a teacher, I'm sure the kids really, really loved him in that vein. And speaking of that, there was one story when I was a kid, my mother used to tell me a lot, speaking of school, when he lived on Steelmanville Road and came to the United States, he didn't know English yet, and he was in kindergarten, he had broken his arm, and the school was down the street, and my mom always would tell us how all the children came to see him and brought him cards and everything because they came to see his friend in first grade, and he was just learning English, and I think that's how charismatic he was to make friends and bring people in. And here's this kid that just came to the United States and they came to see him. So here he was. So that was all of his passions. And Eli had mentioned he was very involved in committees and, you know, the zoning board and the synagogue. And when when I got married, my husband since deceased as well, he was really involved in the Brotherhood in Margate, and I didn't have a synagogue at the time. You know, I lived in Maryland, and he was going to get involved. Michael liked to get involved, and I think he was in the Brotherhood at the time, and he introduced me to everybody and got the synagogue together, and he facilitated for me to get married at Beth Judah. It was Beth Judah at the time. And my father was going to, and he walked me down the aisle, and I remember he was very proud to do that, and it was very cool that my uncle, who babysat me, and then walked me down the aisle. And unfortunately, but fortunately too, when my husband did die, he went to shul every day that year for him. And that's just something Michael would do. That was just something he didn't have to talk about, but that's what he did. So, just to lighten it up a little bit, while Michael was European, he was the first American. He liked sports. Sports in our house, you know, no one knew sports, right? But, Aunt Sally, she didn't know, right? But he knew the Eagles, he knew the Phillies, he knew the Flyers. You could talk sports with him, and that was pretty neat, It was really fun. And he had respect for anyone in any stage of their life that they were in. As was mentioned, he really, was in his father's business, and as life goes on, people get sick, as Michael got sick, but he was there for them, and he was there for his parents, and there every day. And then when my father got sick, he was there then. And when his sister got sick, even when she was in New York, he was there then. And then when my mother was there, he was there every day, and he would visit, and Bobby would visit too, and they would come from Voorhees and come to Bardentown, and then when she was in the hospital, he was there all the time. And I remember even when she passed, he had come that day, and then he came back, so he was there. He was just very there. So even a few weeks ago, I guess it was the last week of July, I was walking around, and he called, and I talked to him, and he was, I think, working. I guess he was coming from work or something, called me, wanted to remind me that it was my mother's yahrzeit, and he was going to go to shul, and if I wanted to come, whatever. But that was one of the last before I had talked to he and Bobby in the hospital at Virtua. But he was saying he was going to go, but that's, something he did. But I think that our Uncle Michael was a one-of-a-kind type of guy, a fighter, a helper, a facilitator, a hard worker, a man with a smile and a good joke, and someone that fought at the end and throughout. But I don't think he ever really had a chip on his shoulder for it. He was a mix of the old world and the new, and a balance of it all. And I think he'll be missed by everyone.
A poem by the Israeli poet Yehuda Amichai, also based on that book of Ecclesiastes. A man in his life has no time to have time for everything. He has no room to have room for every desire. Ecclesiastes was wrong to claim that. A man has to hate and love all at once, with the same eyes to cry and to laugh, with the same hands to throw stones and to gather them. Make love in war and war in love. And hate and forgive and remember and forget, and order and confuse and eat and digest what long history does in so many years. A man in his life has no time. When he loses, he seeks. When he finds, he forgets. When he forgets, he loves. When he loves, he begins forgetting. And his soul is knowing and very professional. Only his body remains an amateur, always. It tries and fumbles. It doesn't learn and gets confused, drunk and blind in his pleasures and pains. In autumn he will die like a fig, shriveled, sweet, full of himself. The leaves dry out on the ground, and the naked branches point to the place where there is time for everything. Most of us know exactly where and when we were born. We have record of the city, the state, even the hospital. We have clear documentation of the date and time down to the minute. Even the details of our weight and length are formally noted. I, for instance, was born at Albert Einstein Hospital, 3:15 in the afternoon on a fine spring day in April, 6 pounds, 4 ounces, according to the doctor's certificate. Michael's birth details are far less clear. For most of his life, he was under the impression he was born on February 8th, 1945. This is the date was placed on that official documentation given to his parents by the U.S. government when his family immigrated to the United States after years of living in that displaced persons camp in Austria. It was only much, much later in life, after going through his mother's personal possessions following her death, that Michael learned, as Eli has shared, that he was actually born October 23rd, 1944. That date was engraved with his initials on a locket that was a gift from his father to his mother. Michael came into this world during incredibly uncertain times, born in the woods between Russia and Poland to parents Frank and Eva, a new brother to older siblings Zelda and Carol, as we've heard, during the family's escape from the Nazi regime. The date, though, remained clear in his parents' memories. It must have been a time of such conflicting emotions, awe and joy at the birth of a new son, yet during a time and place where their paramount concern was literally for survival. Michael was 6 or 7 when his family finally immigrated to the United States, first to Connecticut, and then ultimately settling in Egg Harbor Township here in South Jersey. We can only imagine the impact of spending his early years in a crowded, displaced person camp in post-war Austria. One vivid memory he shared with Bobby, who then shared it with me, was of his bris at the age of 5. He remembered that detail clearly. And then traveling to a new and completely foreign country, Eli has shared how that may have impacted him. It was a lot for a child. I expect the impact of these experiences were indelible, marking him with a strength of character and courage that would serve him well during later challenges in his life. As we've heard, Michael was a strong and caring individual who valued being able to work and support his family. He liked feeling productive, useful, and connected to both family and community. He started out as a teacher. It was only after his father became ill that he transitioned into the world of management, business, and home building, accepting the reins of running Harbor Custom Homes, that business his father founded. Turns out Michael was an excellent businessman and builder. Under his leadership, I'm told, the company was highly sought out and known for honesty and integrity, as well as for building an excellent product. That integrity was pure Michael. He worked hard 7 days a week, 12 hours a day, ensuring that the company reflected his own personal work ethic. Michael's success as a builder was in part because he was a people person. He cared about people and doing right by them. Even after the days of running Harbor Custom Homes were past, he enjoyed working. I expect in large part because it kept him active and involved with the world and the people in it. He worked as a greeter at one point, and as his niece has shared, as a limo driver in Atlantic City. Michael was so personable. What I think the word Lisa used was charismatic. He was easy to have a conversation with, and he loved the stories his passengers told, and he loved to relate them to others. 2 people that were of utmost importance to Michael were his sons, Brett and Stuart. Perhaps more important to him than either of them can know or imagine. He loved them both and was so proud of them, even as he struggled greatly with how to express that directly to them. Perhaps the person who knew best how much Michael cared for his sons was Bobby. Bobby knew Michael better than anyone. Michael and Bobby, as you heard, met 11 years ago when Bobby received a message from a pictureless profile on JDate. She insisted on seeing a picture to ensure it was a real person. And he, eager to make the connection and perhaps impressed by Bobby's strength of conviction, asked a coworker right then and there to take his picture so he could quickly upload it to his profile. They were a good match. It was a later in life romance, but it was one that stuck. 3 times the charm, I'm told Michael would say about his beloved Bobby. And lucky for Michael, he found in Bobby a partner who also didn't shy away from challenge. She loved Michael, was fully committed to him even through his health challenges, and took care of him throughout their life together. Michael underwent his kidney transplant just 1 year after their wedding. It truly was a gift of life, a gift that arrived on Yom Kippur, and a gift that surely extended his life and the life that he and Bobby would share together. This transplant was also a gift that allowed him to share in the lives of his and Bobby's 4 grandchildren, Kyle, Max, Miles, and Lily. Each brought Michael such great joy and pride. The last few years have been filled with so many medical challenges. Bobby shared how grateful she is to the caregivers at the University of Pennsylvania Hospital for their support. But Bobby, know too how you made Michael's life so much better with your constant love and presence in his life. Michael took great pride in his Jewish heritage and was involved throughout his life in synagogue life. He was active in the synagogue in Ventnor when he lived in Egg Harbor, and he and Bobby later joined McCourt Shalom, Sharon and Eli's synagogue home. Michael's involvement at McCourt Shalom says a lot about Michael's willingness to look in the mirror and change. When they first attended McCourt Shalom, he admitted to Bobby being surprised how much he enjoyed it because it was so different from the traditional synagogue experience he was used to. He specifically mentioned all the women on the bima. But at the same time, that initial surprise, if you will, never stopped him from getting involved, being actively present, and perhaps most insightfully, fully respecting the clergy as his synagogue leaders and teachers. The last time I saw Michael, in fact, was when he was dropping off a gift for his rabbi on the occasion of the birth of her first child. Donned in a Phillies jersey, one of his favorite teams, as we heard, the others being, of course, the Eagles and Flyers, he was so delighted to be out and about and doing something kind for someone else. The poet and Rabbi Alvin Fine, who I quoted earlier, also wrote, "To the living, death is a wound. Its name is grief. Whenever it comes, whatever its guise, even when there are no tears, death is a wound." But Rabbi Fine also reminds us that death belongs to life, as night belongs to day, as darkness belongs to light, as shadows belong to substance. As the fallen leaf to the tree, death belongs to life. It is not our purpose to live forever. It is only our purpose to live. It is of no added merit that one lives long. It is of merit only that one's life is good. There is so much goodness from Michael Gelman's life. Was it perfect, without blemish? Of course not. We humans are complicated beings. But taken as a whole, Michael's life was incredibly good. He lived with integrity and honest and a willingness to grapple with his own failings and regrets. And most of all, he was able to love and receive love. We often think in terms of how good life was to a person. Yes, we can say overall life was good to Michael. He was repeatedly a survivor. But more importantly, let all of us here today remember the goodness Michael Gelman brought to each of our lives. And then let us choose to live in a way that ensures his legacy of integrity, honesty, and goodness endures. I ask you, invite you, if you are able in body or spirit, to rise now for the traditional memorial prayer. אל מלא רחמים, שוכן במרומים, המצא מנוחה נכונה, תחת כנפי השכינה, במעלות קדושים וטהורים, כזוהר הרקיע מזהירים, את נשמת משה ההון מנחם ואווה, שהלך לעולמו. אנא בעל הרחמים, הסתירהו בסתר כנפיך לעולמים, וצרו בצרור החיים את נשמתו. אדוני הוא נחלתו, וינוח משלום על משכבה, ונאמר Amen. Compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to the soul of Moshe Aharon ben Ephraim ve'Eva, the soul of Michael A. Gelman, who has entered eternity. May his rest be in paradise. O God of mercy, let him find refuge forever in the shadow of your wings, and let his soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God is his inheritance. May he rest in peace. And let us again say together, Amen. You may be seated. Michael's family will be sitting Shiva through Sunday evening. There will be minyanim on Zoom on Saturday evening and Sunday evening at 7.
Let's hear on the right, please. Ladies and gentlemen, you have a seat, please.